Good evening and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we continue with the Uddhava Gita. And this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, chapter number 20. So in this, Krishna is speaking with Uddhava, his dear friend. They're in Dwarka and they're having this long discussion that's been going on quite a while. We've been reading from it for the last many episodes now. I think it's the 13th or 14th. So at the end of the previous chapter, Krishna stated, there is no need for a more elaborate description of good and bad qualities, since to constantly see good and bad is itself a bad quality. Think about this. There is no need for a more elaborate description of good and bad qualities, since to constantly see good and bad is itself a bad quality. We'll talk about this in a minute. The best quality one should cultivate is to transcend both good and evil. In other words, if you think about this, this is what our mind is constantly doing. It's constantly evaluating the world in terms of positive and negative. It's as if there was a binary system going on within our brains, and that binary system, instead of doing ones and zeros like our computers do, is going positive, negative. I like this, I don't like this. I agree with this, I disagree with this. This is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. And it's constantly putting things into these boxes. And once it's put them into a certain box, it's very hard to get it out. Once you start believing something, let's say all dash, whatever kind of people you want to say, or all dash places are bad, then it's very hard to get that thought out. Somebody has to really change your perspective in a way that really hits home for you. I've known people feel that a certain race is bad or a certain religion is bad. And then when they've come face to face with someone, made friends with someone who is of that race, of that religion, and then they've suddenly realized, oh my gosh, this person is just a person like me. They're not good or bad. They're actually wonderful. They've become my friend. So in this way, entire paradigms can shift. But the mind is very rigid. Once it has put something into a certain box of positive or negative, then it is very hard to get it out of that box. To hold the ability to see both positive and negative simultaneously and not be affected by either one is what Krishna is talking about here. He says the best quality is to transcend both good and evil, or positive and negative. So this is not about think positively as we've been told for so long, right? Or some kind of toxic positivity that everything we've got to look at is positive, only be with positive people, good people, and avoid all the toxic people and all the bad people. No, this is exactly what Krishna is talking against here. He says to see good and bad is itself a bad quality, an undesirable quality. See? So we do this to each other. We do this to ourselves. And in fact, the degree that we do it to ourselves is the degree we begin to do it to each other. And often it's driven by things that we've been taught by our religion. And this is going to be discussed now, the role that religion plays on perpetuating the idea of good and evil, the importance of having such an idea, and the problems that it creates as well. So bear with me and let's keep going further and you'll get to learn more about that. So Uddhava, Krishna's friend, pursues this point, asking Krishna to elaborate on this difficult subject. Uddhava says, my dear lotus-eyed Krishna, you are the Supreme Lord. And thus the Vedic literatures, right? This is the Vedic literatures were compiled 5,000 years ago, and this is part of the Vedas, the Bhagavatam. So thus the Vedic literatures consisting of positive and negative injunctions constitute your instructions for us. Such literatures focus upon the good and bad qualities of work. So it shows you what kind of work you should do and what kind of work you shouldn't do. Like you shouldn't be stealing. That's not a good thing to do, right? You shouldn't be killing people. That's not a good thing to do. So he's saying that the scriptures, which you yourself have written, Krishna, because you are the Supreme Lord, you yourself have given these instructions for us, and they focus upon good and bad qualities of work. So then Uddhav goes on to mention how the Varnashram system that we've talked about in the past, Varna and Ashram. The Varnas are the Brahmins or priests, Kshatriyas or rulers, politicians, warriors, the Vaishyas or merchants, Shudras or workers. So this is how Vedic culture divided society. And it was not meant to be that one is better than the other, but there's different people have different aptitudes, different qualities, and different things that they're good at. And accordingly, society was divided. It was corrupted over the years, and we've discussed that in earlier times, so I won't go into it now. So anyways, he says that even this Varnashram system that Krishna, you say you are initiated it, started it, that this is by divine arrangement, and all gradations amongst human beings. Think about it. Someone is rich, someone is poor, someone has low IQ, someone has high IQ, someone is beautiful, someone is ordinary looking, etc. All this depends on good or bad karma. Your good and bad karma in previous lifetimes determines all these situations that you find yourself in now, the kind of body you have, the kind of family you were born into, the kind of place you were born into. Everything is affected by your karma, and your present karma is creating your future karma. Not only, well, part of it will ripen. Think of it like a seed that will ripen in this life or in any other life. It can happen immediately, like if you hit somebody and they might decide to hit you back. So that's instant karma, right? And in other cases, it can be in a short while. You don't pay your taxes, they finally figure it out, or you jump a red light and they take a photograph, and a week later they catch you and you have a ticket, and so it can take a few days, it can take a few weeks, it can take a few years to come back to you, but your karmic reactions will come one way or the other, the good ones and the bad ones. This is going on autopilot. It is not that God needs to personally be sitting there and watching everything and doing everything. No, he'd go nuts if he was doing that. So Uddhav continues, indeed, the Vedas reveal the existence of material heaven and hell, which are certainly based on piety and sin. Once again, the Vedas do talk about heavenly planets and hellish planets. This is not the concept of hell that is there in the Abrahamic religions, where you burn in hell forever. No, places of greater pleasure and beauty and places of greater suffering. On this earth, we see that exactly, where there are places on this earth that are extremely beautiful, where people have lovely, beautiful bodies, they have a lot of wealth, they live more comfortable lives. And there's other places on this earth that are very poor and very difficult situations, even of nature. Maybe it's in a desert, maybe it's in a place where they're very, very poor people. And so a child who's born into that is living in a hellish situation. So that's what they refer to here. So he says, the Vedas reveal that even the existence of material heaven and hell, which are certainly based on piety and sin. So the person who has been very pious and religious gets to be in a heavenly situation. I think that most religions, when they talk about people going to heaven, they're talking about people going to the heavenly planets. They don't seem to realize that there is something that is far beyond the heavenly planets. Because when they talk of heaven, they talk about having mansions in heaven. They talk about having wonderful arrangements and wonderful, beautiful places. And some religions talk of beautiful lovers that they will have, and so on. So all of that is heavenly planets, or even hellish planets can have a lot of those qualities as well. But they're hellish because the people there are asura. That means they are disconnected from God. And that disconnect is what makes it hellish. It's not actually the place. It's actually the disconnection from God. So that creates a hellish existence. Without knowing the difference between piety and sin, how can one understand your instructions to act piously and not sinfully? The Vedic literatures ultimately award liberation. Without them, how can human beings achieve the perfection of life? Now he's pointing out the Vedas, which are the scriptures, that the oldest scriptures coming back from for thousands of years before all the Abrahamic religions. They talk about pious action and impious action, or piety and sinfulness, right? Now, but their goal is actually to take you towards liberation. So they are designed for human beings to come to the point of wanting to get out of this world, wanting to see the misery of this world and get out of it. So Uddhava says, my dear Lord, to understand those things beyond direct experience, such as spiritual liberation, liberation is the same as nirvana, moksha, mukti, salvation. All these are words for the same thing, to become free of suffering, to become free of the suffering of this world. This is the aspiration of most spiritual seekers who want some form of liberation. So, my dear Lord, to understand those things beyond direct experience, such as spiritual liberation or the attainment of heaven and similar material enjoyments, and in general, to understand the means and end of all things, it is imperative that everyone consult the Vedic literatures, which are your laws, and constitute the highest evidence and revelation. It's an important point here. The Vedas are actually evidence, praman. They give evidence because they present so many people who have practiced those teachings and have seen the results. There is the evidence. The evidence is also there of the Supreme Lord and his incarnations. That too has been found and has always been there. The evidence in terms of certain places and certain symbols and certain signs and certain texts and certain people who've had those visions and so on. And that's the revelation aspect of it. So then he continues, the distinction observed between piety and sin comes from Vedic knowledge and does not arise by itself. If the same Vedic literature subsequently nullifies such distinction between piety and sin, there will certainly be confusion. So now think of it like this. From ancient times, it was the scriptures that laid the foundation for what was good and bad, what people should do and what people should not do. Now suddenly Krishna is saying, good and bad is itself bad. So can you see the confusion now? If good and bad is itself bad, then what are these scriptures doing telling us what is good and bad? Now, let's take a look at certain changes that have happened in our society where people don't believe in God, where they don't believe in scriptures, and where they believe that everything is subjective. I have my truth, you have your truth. I have my reality, you have your reality. And there is no such thing as an objective truth or an objective reality. And the result of that is I can do whatever I feel like doing. As long as the law doesn't catch me and I don't go to jail for it, I can do whatever I want. I am free. This is the myth that we've been living under. But the truth is something else. The truth is that this world and everything in it and everyone in it was not made by us. I didn't make this world. I didn't make this body. I did not make or make it function. I don't decide whether my heart will beat or not beat, whether my brain will work or not work. I don't. I don't have control over that. Neither do you, neither do any of us. So this idea that somehow my truth is the truth can only be if I am the master of my destiny. And that's what we are told we are, right? We are told, in fact, that we are gods, that we can create anything, we can have anything, we can be anything. This is God. And although we are tiny fragments of God, and there is some partial truth in this, the reality is that the person who created everything is the one who gives us the instruction in how to live in this world. And that instruction is called Shastra or scripture. That scripture gives certain guidelines of what works and what doesn't work. Like when you buy a machine, computer, refrigerator, or any other appliance or car, or there's always an instruction manual that's telling you how to operate this thing. If you don't follow the instructions and you want to do your own thing, and no, I have my truth, and I don't care what the instruction manual says, I will drive it the way I want, I will use it the way I want, well, chances are it'll break down a lot faster. Chances are that you will not get the optimal use out of it. Chances are that you won't figure out many of things that are possible with that appliance or machine. You'll figure out what you figure out, but that's about it. So when we follow the Shastra, we follow the scripture, we get guidelines. And if we follow those guidelines, we're able to see the results. And those results are about being able to experience greater peace in the world, experience greater harmony with nature, greater sense of connection with each other. These are the results of true following. There are so many people who go about distorting these very teachings. I'm not going to talk about that right now. The intention of scripture, the reason that God gives them to us, is so that we may live in harmony with the earth, with each other, and with ourselves. And that we may elevate ourselves through our actions to come to the point of liberation, where we may become free of all suffering and be able to transcend the world. So in the purport, it is said here, the material world gives the living entities a chance to satisfy their perverted desires and at the same time gradually achieve the liberation of going home back to Godhead. So, perverted desires? What do you mean? You see, we have desires. Let's understand that. We all have desires. Everything we do is based on desire. Everything we have is based on desire. All of our actions, our needs, everything comes from our desire. So this desire, what is it? In Sanskrit, they call it vasana. And this vasana comes from the impressions that come into our mind. When we see certain things, and we desire to have them. So we can't stop seeing or hearing. Through our senses, impressions are formed, and then our mind goes into, I like this, oh, I don't like that, I want this, I don't want that. And so it follows the same thing. And then from there, it now goes towards fulfilling that desire. And we spend our whole life doing this. The impressions come in. It could be that someone you saw, it could be something you saw. And now I want this or I want that. Now we're pursuing that, and that's what our life is all about. I want to be like that person, and I don't want to be like this other person. Whatever way our mind is, but it's always working on this positive, negative, dualistic paradigm. So perverted desire means that all desire, in fact, is perverted. It is like a mirage in a desert. It tells you there is water, but there is no real water there. It tells you that this thing will make you, or this person, or this object will make you happy, will make you feel good, will give you some kind of pleasure. And maybe it does for a little while, but then it fades or changes or goes away. And then we're left feeling sometimes empty, cheated. And sometimes we just keep going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, not even questioning what's going on. I've been spending my whole life trying to fulfill my desires, and still I'm not happy. And still I'm not satisfied. And still I'm not content. And I'm still chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. It's been 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. When do I wake up? And when do I say, wait a minute, what have I been doing all my life? I've been chasing desires. So am I in charge of these desires? Am I controlling my desires, or are my desires controlling me? I've been following my mind. Is my mind been in control of me, or am I in control of my mind? In fact, we are slaves of our desires. We are slaves of our mind. So, therefore, he says here, material piety must be considered a means and never an absolute end, since the material world itself is not absolute, but in fact is temporary and limited. So, the material world can give you material satisfaction, and material satisfaction by its very nature is temporary. Everything in this world is temporary, and so what you will get from a temporary world is only temporary satisfaction, which might last as long as a meal lasts, which might last as long as, let's say, two people getting together and having sex, and that's as long as it lasts. But that's about it. And maybe it lasts a little longer. But whatever it is, it's temporary. Even if a person is with you their entire life, still that is temporary. On the other hand, we are eternal beings. We are spirit. We are spiritual beings. And because we are spiritual beings, we long for things that do not wither away and pass. We long for being happy always. We long for being in love forever. That's what we long for. We don't long for a love that will be for a night, a love that will be for a day. No, we long for a love that is so big that we will live, hopefully, happily ever after. I don't know of anyone that does that, but that's the dream. And that dream comes from that part of us that is eternal, that longs for eternal happiness, eternal love, for eternal peace, for eternal life. See, because we are spirit, we think in those terms, but those terms are not able to be fulfilled on this earth, in this material world. Not just this earth, but anywhere in this material world, whether you're in the heavenly planet or a hellish, doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to get what you're really seeking from within. That can only be found in spirit. Only spirit can satisfy spirit. Only that which is eternal can satisfy that which is eternal. It is just how it is. So it says here, Uddhava is speaking, I think. No, it's the purport. The material, okay. Krishna, the Supreme Godhead, is himself the reservoir of all virtue and goodness. Those persons and activities that please him are to be considered virtuous, and those that displease him are to be considered sinful. There cannot be any other permanent definition of these terms. If one comes from a mundane moralist angle, forgetting that there is a God and that one's position is certainly imperfect, then one will not achieve the ultimate goal of piety, which is to go back to God. Understand this. The ultimate goal of piety is not to be a good human being, is not to do good to others, is not about being good or whatever, but it is about being able to please God. Why do you want to please God? Who is God? So that which is the source of everything, that which is the controller of everything is Ishvara. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. He is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. So that supreme controller, that supreme Lord, that supreme source of everything is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. He needs nothing. He doesn't need your prayers. He doesn't need anything from you. However, there is between us, because of his having created us, there is a certain connection between us. And what he does long for is to revive that connection. And you may ask, well, what is the nature of this connection? Is it just that I meditate and I connect and I align myself with the divine and I sit in some kind of trance? Sure, that's a beginning point. But deeper than that, if we can conceive the idea that that which is the source of everything is a being, not just an energy, just as you're not just an energy, you're also a being. Although your soul is an energy, yet you are a being, and you think like a being, and you have desires like a being. So similarly, that which you came from is also a being. You may say, no, how can it be? It's the source of everything. It's the creator. It's consciousness. It cannot be a being. Why can it not be? It can be whatever it wants to be. So don't try to limit God. So if God is a being and you are a being, what is the natural thing between beings? We form relationships. What is the ultimate relationship between two beings, whether it's you and your dog or a cat or a human or a friend or a lover, partner or your parent? What is the relationship that you have with them? How do you relate? What is the basis of that? That basis at its highest is love. And so the relationship between God and the living entity is one of love. And if there is anything he seeks, God seeks, that is to love you and be loved by you. Now you say, well, then what's this whole thing about trying to please God? Well, that's what people who love each other do. They try to please the other person. How can I make you happy? How can I serve you? And that is the way we relate to God. And you say, oh, so that he's a tyrant? He just wants to be pleased by me and he wants to take from me? No, he's given you everything. He's given you this body. He's given you your life. He's given you this world. And instead of gratitude, what we have is, I just want to take more and more and more. Why should I give thanks? Why should I try to please him? Why should I try to love him? No. The reality is that if we do begin to recognize everything that he's given us and we begin to give thanks and go beyond even thanks. Thanks is just the formal expression, the beginning. You know, like when you meet somebody and you give them a space in line, let's say, or you give them something to eat. They say, thank you so much. That might be the beginning of a relationship. But as the relationship deepens, there are so many more layers within that. And it's not just about thanks, it's about service. How can I serve you? What can I do for you? Oh, your car is broken down. Oh, you're having a hard time walking. How can I help you? Service. So we show our love and our caring and our compassion through service. And that is how it works with God. He's given us so much. So we say, what can I do for you? Right? There's this I think it was Kennedy who said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. In the same way, don't keep asking God, what can you do for me? Ask, what can I do for you? How can I serve you? How can I love you? How can I reciprocate? You've done so much for me. What can I do for you? What would please you? See, again, when we do something for someone we love, we don't do something that we want to do. We do something that the other person would like. And that is real love. I don't get a person who I love the kind of flowers I like. I get her the kind of flowers she likes. You see, that's the difference. I don't get my child the kind of toy I think they should have. I get them the kind of toy they would enjoy most or that they've been hankering for, desiring or wanting. So in much the same way, we need to relate to God. So he's saying here, piety, pious action, being good action, pious action, is that which pleases God. An impious action or sinful action is that which doesn't please God. Now that would include us hurting each other, talking ill of each other, gossiping about each other, putting each other down, criticizing each other. All those things would come under doesn't please God. And ultimately what pleases God is that we start acting in such a way that we can get closer and closer to him and ultimately come back to him. Come back. go back home, back to Godhead. On the other hand, there is great fear among moralists that if the distinction between piety and sin is minimized, people will commit many atrocities in the name of God. In the modern world, there is no clear understanding of spiritual authority, and moral people consider any appeal to transcend morality to be an invitation to fanaticism, anarchy, violence, and corruption. Thus, they regard material moral principles as more important than directly trying to please God. I hope you're starting to understand a little something here. Actually, what is underlying people's rigid following of moral codes is fear. Fear that if we don't impose moral codes on ourselves and each other, that we will somehow become amoral and immoral, and we will do harmful things. We will if we go beyond morality, then there will be anarchy, there will be violence, there will be corruption. Look, in all our attempts to be good and do good, we are highly fanatical, highly in states of violence and corruption. We have not been able to put that behind us. That is because our attempts at being good often create its very opposite, evil or bad or negative, whatever you want to call it. I'll give you a little thought experiment. Do not think about a parrot with a red beak and yellow, small little yellow feathers on its green body. That's exactly what you're going to think about. So now when I tell you through the commandments or any other thing, don't do this, it's exactly what you're going to do. If I tell you don't kill, don't steal, don't do, you're going to want to do just that, because that's how the mind works. You tell a child don't climb up the tree, they'll climb up that tree. Don't hit the dog, they'll go hit the dog. That's how the human mind works. When you say don't, the human mind doesn't hear the word don't. It hears do this. And that's what keeps happening. So therefore Krishna is saying here, we have to rise beyond good and evil, between right and wrong. Even Rumi said it so beautifully. There is a field beyond right and wrong. I'll meet you there. That means that there is something beyond good and bad, right and wrong, positive and negative. And that field is the field of non-duality. And that non-duality is a beautiful place. It's where we've all wanted to be. If we could be there, the invitation is not to give up morality and to give up doing good things and therefore end up doing bad things. The invitation is to go out of good and bad and come to the place of non-duality, where there is no mind anymore and where you are simply in a state of blissfulness, because that's what lies beyond the cover of the mind. The mind covers who we really are, which is the soul. And if you go beyond the positive and negative, the mind and its control over you, you will access your soul. And as you access that place of soul, which is non-duality, that is its very nature. The nature of God is non-duality. Therefore, God doesn't punish people who do wrong things, because God is not in a place of duality. There is no right and wrong for God. He lives in a place of non-duality. The soul lives in a place of non-duality. So if a person, instead of following moralistic codes, learns to quiet their mind and become peaceful inside and access their soul, that place of non-duality within themselves, they will automatically do things that come from a place of compassion and kindness and love. One doesn't even have to tell them to do it. It is the nature of the soul. It is the nature of who you are. And you will immediately start to act from that very place. There is no fear there. And there is no need to control there. And there is no need to try to do things that will be harmful to anyone. It is completely against the very nature of who we are. So Uddhava is asking Krishna for clarification, and Krishna says, my dear Uddhava, because I desire that human beings achieve perfection. So notice this, Krishna, the Supreme Lord, the God of gods, Supreme Godhead, says, I desire that human beings achieve perfection. And because of that, I have presented 3 paths of advancement. They are path of Jnana Yoga or knowledge, Karma Yoga or work, and Bhakti Yoga or the path of devotion or the path of love of God. 3 paths. Jnana Yoga, knowledge, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. We're going to analyze each of these 3 now. So, the path of knowledge, the path of work, the path of devotion. Besides these 3, there is absolutely no other means of elevation. People think, oh, I want to ascend. I want to have ascension. And how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to smoke something. I'm going to take some drug. I'm going to, I don't know, meditate. I'm going to do something and I will ascend out of this world. I love the grand delusions we create. Show me one person that ascended in that way, and I will show you a cheater. But on the other hand, in this system that Krishna is talking about, I will show you thousands of people who have ascended and who have developed true spiritual growth and development through these processes that he's talking about here. The path of knowledge, the path of work, and the path of devotion. Besides these, there is absolutely no other means of elevation. Now, each of these has many schools of thought. Each of these has many branches. There's not one single thing. But the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about this considerably there. He says, those who are not disgusted with material life, having many desires to fulfill, should seek perfection through the path of Karma Yoga. So once again, to go back over that, Karma Yoga refers to work, right? So those who are not disgusted with material life, having many desires yet to fulfill, should seek perfection through the path of Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is actually where you begin to, you're already working, you're doing karma already. Your work is karma, your every action is karma, but now you connect that with God. You work as an offering to God. You work for His pleasure. You work to please Him. Whatever you do as work, Krishna says, do it as an offering unto me. That is Karma Yoga. So a person who has a lot of desires to fulfill should learn to elevate oneself through Karma Yoga. On the other hand, those who are disgusted with material life, who've seen the futility of material life, who understand that this is not working for anybody, and are thus detached from ordinary karmic activities. As such people, you might see them, they've gone off to an ashram, they've gone off to become monks, or they've gone off on some spiritual path or trajectory to try to figure out, find themselves, to find God, whatever it might be. But they've understood the futility of this. They've understood the futility of all these people who are chasing their dreams and getting nowhere. So those who are disgusted with material life and are thus detached from ordinary karmic activities might be drawn towards Jnana Yoga, the path of philosophical speculation. So Jnana Yoga refers to the seeking of knowledge. You'll find this in the schools of Vedanta, for example, in India, and if they're looking through the Vedas and in the Upanishads, they find a lot of deep philosophy. And then you'll find the Greek philosophers. You'll find this Socrates, and you'll find Plato, and you'll find Aristotle, and you'll find present-day philosophers from all the way up to the quantum physicists who present their own philosophies, and the New Age philosophers, and then all kinds of philosophers that are there. But that is the path of Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, chapter 4, text number 11, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stathaiva bhajami aham mama vartamanu vartante manushya partha sarvashaha. All of them, all living entities, as they surrender unto me, I reward accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. So this idea is often mentioned as many streams entering into a river and many rivers that enter into the ocean. So there are many paths that people are on. That path could be atheism. That path could be that you're seeking God directly. Or it could be that you're here to try to fulfill your desires, to be a multimillionaire, to have everything in the world, to enjoy everything, to have tons of sex, to have tons of pleasure, to have travel a lot, to do all kinds of things. Whatever it is, all of you and everyone is following the paths that God has set in motion. These are all paths that He's already, that have been created, and you're just following along with them. But all of these paths ultimately lead to God, just as all rivers ultimately go to the ocean. Although all authorized processes of human perfection ultimately lead to Krishna or love of God, Krishna consciousness or love of God, various performers have specific propensities. So various individuals have specific propensities and qualifications and thus gravitate to different methods of self-realization. So there's not a one size fits all. Everyone has their own seeking, their own longing, their own desire in terms of how they want to better their life. And especially one who has come to the point of understanding the futility of material existence, and that person goes on a whole different journey. Sri Krishna describes the three authorized processes together in order to emphasize that their ultimate goal is one. The path of Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, which is loving devotion to God, their goal is one. You say, how is this possible? In the process of jnana, one seeks impersonal liberation by merging into the glare. So this is the process of jnana or knowledge. And you'll notice most people around who are intellectuals or who like to read new age things or who are philosophers, they will talk to you about impersonal liberation. They're not interested in God. They want some light that they will merge into. They want to become one with the divine. This is their search because they don't want to have to obey somebody or follow someone and do what someone tells them. They're individuals. They are self-made people. So why would they want to follow somebody and give up their independence and their freedom and their autonomy? So in the process of Gyan, one seeks impersonal liberation by merging into the glaring effulgence of the Supreme Being. See that light, that is the effulgence, the light radiating from the Supreme Being. This path requires deep study, austerity, and penance. People don't realize that. They think, no, I'll just go and do some mindfulness and I'll just, do some dancing, ecstatic dance, and I'll therefore reach that place of oneness. There's a hope, but there is no clear path. There is no one who has reached there through the path you're on. And if that is the case, then you need to find, because if you've only got a dream of a place, but no one's ever been there and you don't have a map on how to get there and you don't know what the process is, there's no one to tell you the process and there's no one who's attained that place or that whatever you're seeking, then you're basically living a fool's paradise. You're living in a dream, an illusion, and there is no result that you will get. So if you want really to follow the path of Jnana Yoga, that path requires study, deep study, austerity. Austerity means doing difficult things, rising early in the morning, meditating, going into deep states of trance. It requires penance like fasting and learning to tolerate heat and cold and many other dualities and ups and downs of life. But those who are on the path of bhakti, devotees of the Supreme Lord, consider such liberation or merging into the light to be hellish, because by merging one loses all awareness of the supreme, blissful, features of Bhagavan, the Supreme Person. Once you've merged into the light, there is no chance to be able to appreciate the beauty of the divine, of that Supreme Being. There is no way to appreciate the Leela, the pastimes, the loving affairs of the Supreme Being. That is, of course, we need to step away from the earlier ideas of this wrathful God who's going to punish everyone and send them to hell. We have to get out of that mess. But yeah, because when you merge into the light, you lose all awareness of the supreme blissful personal features of Bhagavan, the Supreme Person. The performers of Karma Yoga, which was the first kind that we were talking about, Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga, the performers of Karma Yoga or regulated work, who are still desirous of enjoying material society, friendship, and love, and who are excited by the prospect of going with their relatives to material heavenly planets, are advised to remain in family life and offer the fruits of their work to the Supreme Being. In this way, they can also gradually learn detachment from material life. The illusion on this path is that karma yogis think that by exhausting each of their innumerable material desires, they will gradually come out of the dark tunnel of material existence into the clear light of spiritual liberation. Unfortunately, this process is very dangerous and uncertain because not only is there virtually no limit to material desires, since there is no limit to material desires, there will never be an end to material desires. The more you try to fulfill them, the more they will give you the next thing and the next thing. And you've noticed it. All your life you've noticed it. All your life you've been hankering for something or someone or other. And if that something became worn out or old or that person left, then you're hankering for another and another. It's limitless. And therefore, they're saying here that process is dangerous and uncertain because not only is there virtually no limit to material desires, but even a slight flaw in the process of karma yoga can throw one onto the path off the path of progressive life. Progress meaning progressing towards that place of liberation, that place of freedom. Devotees of Krishna directly, however, aim for love of God through bhakti yoga. You remember again, if I take you back there, the three processes we're discussing: Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and now Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga, or devotional love for the divine, for God, is perhaps the most beautiful of these. Because when one aims for love of God, and the only aim is to therefore please the Supreme Lord, in any case, elevation on any of the paths would have depended upon the mercy of Sri Krishna. One cannot progress along any of these paths without his blessings. Which path would you think would give you the greatest blessings? The path where you're going to prove yourself through your work? The path where you're going to prove how knowledgeable you are? You think God is going to be impressed? Or the path where you will, through devotion, give your heart, your love, your service through humility? Which path do you think would lead you closer to someone? When you love someone, how do you think that you will get closer to them? Would you get closer just by doing things for them? Yeah. If somebody is interested in just using you for your money or whatever you work, then fine. Yeah, that'll work. And if somebody simply wants to be known by you and you are willing to sit with them and understand them and listen to them, sure, that will be very nice. They will be very pleased with you. But if somebody wants to have true unconditional love that is not based on any agenda, that is not based on any what's in it for me, then when we give up our selfishness and our greed and our wanting something out of God and become to love God for the sake of love and for nothing else, then a real relationship forms. A rich person, a powerful person, doesn't want to be friends with someone who wants to use them, who wants to take advantage of their position, who wants to get their, things done because this person is very influential or very powerful or very rich. No. They want to be friends with someone who loves them or who appreciates them or who acknowledges them for who they are. And it is the same with God. So Krishna continues, if somehow or other, by good fortune, one develops faith in hearing and chanting about my glories, such a person, being neither disgusted with nor very attached to material life, should attain perfection through the path of bhakti yoga or loving devotion to me. So what is he saying here? Just by hearing about, an inner revolution takes place. When you hear about Krishna with an open mind and open heart, you begin to understand, hey, I want to know this more. I want to know more about who you are. Who is this Krishna person? Read, and you start to read Bhagavad Gita. You start to listen to the Kirtan. You start to actually learn the philosophy, the science, the art of bhakti, of loving devotion to God. And as you do, your eagerness increases to know more and more and more. And as you learn and become more, your heart melts. And as your heart melts, you begin to come into that place of true love. So through jnana and karma that a person is doing towards Krishna, one actually comes to the place of true bhakti, of love of God. And that love is not conditional. That love is not based upon something that I will get from God. God is not my provider. He's going to give me whatever I want. He's going to pay my bills. He's going to solve my problems. No, none of that. So when a person hears my glories, Krishna says, such a person, being neither disgusted with the world nor very attached to the world, will begin to achieve perfection through the path of bhakti yoga or loving devotion to me. As long as one is not satiated by karmic activity and has not awakened his taste for bhakti, devotional service, by hearing and speaking about me, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions. So, look, if you still have a lot of material desires, and if you still are identified with this body, with this mind, with this story that you have about your life and about who you are, then yes, then you need to continue by karma yoga, offering the fruits of your work to Krishna, reading about him, understanding him. So you're doing karma yoga and jnana yoga, and you're beginning to come into the path of bhakti, of loving devotion. But you're still not there. You might be even engaging in many of the regulative principles. You need to act according to the Vedic injunctions. All these rules still apply to you. When one has come to the point of bhakti, actual loving devotion, one goes beyond the rules and regulations of the Vedas, beyond the rules and regulations of scripture. But being beyond them doesn't mean that you are in disregard of them or that you are acting in a way that is now suddenly harmful to others. Oh, you are just doing whatever you like and you're being a complete jerk. No, not at all. The fact that you have risen above the rules and regulations of society means that you are 10 times more responsible. You are much more responsible. Even Krishna, when he comes to this world, he observes all the Vedic rules and regulations for the benefit of others. Our gurus and acharyas, they do the same thing. They observe, although they are above the rules, they are above the law, they are above Vedic injunctions and the scriptures, yet they act as role models for others so that we may not get distracted and waylaid, and we may follow, because it is said by Krishna that what a great person does, all the world follows. So when you choose a leader, when you have someone you look up to, when you follow someone, you're going to copy their behavior. Children do that with their parents. They do that, but they imitate. And we as adults still do that. We are influenced by a certain person, especially if we look up to them. So in the purport it is said, Shruti Smriti Mamai Vagnye Yaste Ulanghan Vartate Agyana Chedi Mamadveshi Mad Bhakto Pi Na Vaishnavaha. The Shruti and Smriti the Vedas, the different aspects of the Vedic scriptures, are to be understood as my injunctions. Injunctions means instructions. And one who violates such code is to be understood as violating my will and thus opposing me. Although such a person may claim to be my devotee, he is not actually a Vaishnava. So Krishna makes it very clear that being a devotee of God, a lover of God, doesn't mean you act against scriptural injunctions which are meant for the world. Even if you have transcended these rules and you are no longer controlled by them internally, yet you still follow them just to honor the teachings that are there for everyone. The Supreme Lord here states that if one has not developed firm faith in the process, chanting and hearing, one must comply with the ordinary injunctions of Vedic literatures. Firm faith here meaning nishtha. That is an advanced stage of spiritual development. Firm faith, not just soft faith, but firm faith. Firm meaning unshakable. Unshakable, no matter what comes your way. Good things come, bad things come. Your faith is not dependent on that. Whatever favorable or unfavorable things come, you are deeply committed on the path. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 7, it is stated, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayat Ahitukam. One who is actually engaged in advanced devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, immediately develops both jnana, that is clear knowledge of the Supreme, and vairagyam, detachment from the world. Srila Jiva Goswami points out in this regard that when a person fully surrenders to Sri Krishna, he takes shelter of the Supreme Lord's promise to provide what he needs and preserve what he has, as well as to free him from karmic responsibilities and debts. Such a devotee becomes fearless by meditating on the Lord's promise of protection. So one who has come on to Bhakti Yoga is in a place of surrender, completely depending on Sri Krishna to protect them, to take care of them, and not worrying a bit about how they're going to manage their livelihood or how they're going to get by in life. No worries. My dear Uddhava, Krishna says, a person who is situated in his prescribed duty, properly worshipping by Vedic sacrifices and not desiring the karmic result of such work, will not go to the heavenly planets. Similarly, by not performing forbidden activities, he will not go to the hellish planets. So basically, if you're engaging in Bhakti Yoga, then you're not doing it because you want to go to some heavenly planet. There is no selfish desire when there is bhakti. Bhakti is about love, about devotion to God, and there is no selfish desire in it. Anya abhilashita shunyam, that the desire for one's selfish needs is shunya, zero, non-existent. And so therefore there is no elevation to heavenly planets. And even if one does something wrong, he will not go into some hellish place. So what will happen? We'll come to learn about that. One who is situated in his prescribed duty, so you're doing what you've got to do, your dharma, and you're doing your best to stay free from wrongdoing, sinful activities, and is cleansed of material contamination, in this very life obtains transcendental knowledge, or by fortune devotional service unto me. The residents of both the heavenly and hellish planets desire human birth on the earth planet because human life facilitates the achievement of transcendental knowledge and love of God, whereas neither heavenly nor hellish bodies efficiently provide such opportunities. It's very important to understand this, that both people who are in the heavenly planets and the hellish planets want to come and take birth on earth. Hellish planets are not always hellish. They are just disconnected from God. Please be very clear. We're not talking fire and brimstone out here. They're disconnected. So when they come to this earth provides neither too much pleasure nor too much pain. It's a sort of mix. Whatever amount of pleasure you will get pain, equivalent suffering, equivalent of that. Whatever suffering you will get an equivalent amount of pleasure. It will come of its own accord. You don't even have to strive for it. But we keep striving. We keep thinking, I have to do all this so that I can be happy. But no, happiness will come of its own accord, as does suffering come of its own accord. Misery does not ask you. You've never asked for it, but it will come. A human being, Krishna says, who is wise should never desire promotion to heavenly planets or residence in hell. Indeed, a human being should also never desire permanent residence on the earth. For by such absorption in the material body, one becomes foolishly negligent of one's actual self-interest. So, people from the heavenly planets and hellish planets all want to land up on earth because this is the place where you make the maximum spiritual advancement. That's why our population is growing and growing and growing like crazy. But the problem is that people aren't taking advantage of the opportunity of being on this earthly planet. Here you get some of the greatest wisdom. Here you get some of the greatest teachings, because here the Supreme Lord has incarnated so many times. So many times. And such wonderful teachings are there for us to learn from. So the idea is not that one should leave the heavenly planets or hellish planets, come to the earth, and now earth is the place to be. No, no, no. This is the place where you make the maximum spiritual growth, but don't get attached to this place either. The purport, it is said, one who has achieved human life on the earth has an excellent opportunity to attain spiritual liberation through bhakti yoga or devotional service to Sri Krishna. Thus, one should not desire promotion to heaven or risk residence in hell, where excessive enjoyment or punishment deviate one's mind from self-realization. On the other hand, one should not think, this earth is so nice, I can stay here forever. One should develop through detachment from all aspects and categories of material existence, and I'll prepare to go home back to Godhead, where life is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. Krishna now begins to develop his conclusive proof that actual human progress lies beyond material piety and sin. Neither piety nor sin establish the eternal living entity in his constitutional position. Therefore, something more is required to achieve the actual perfection of life. I was asked by someone just a few days ago, I said, aren't we here to clear up our karmas? Aren't we here to, do more good than bad so that we can have good karmas? And I said, no, that's not what you're here to do. That's not what spiritual life is. Karma, everybody is doing. If you do good karmas, all that will do is give you some good results. Those good results could be a better situation on earth, or could be a better situation in some heavenly planet. But you will still be subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. You will still be subject to suffering in all its different shapes and forms, and the struggle for existence. That won't go away. So the idea of being the real advancement that every human being needs to make is the spiritual advancement, real spiritual advancement, which is described in the Bhagavad Gita. What are the symptoms of a person who has evolved and who has come to a higher place, and then to know what the stages are of that advancement. Ultimately, it is about coming to he refers to here as our constitutional position, which means our original nature. Our original nature is as a soul. So it is the actualization of our soul. Call it self-realization. It's not just a realization, it's actually stepping into that place, learning to live from the soul, learning how to act as a soul in this world. So that, and then with that, to engage the soul, engage one's body, mind, soul in every way in serving God, and then form that relationship, and then with that relationship, release oneself from this world, from the bondage of this world. You will experience that release from bondage here and now, and then ultimately go back to home, back to God. A wise person Krishna says, knowing that although the material body is subject to death, it can still award the perfection of one's life. A wise person should not foolishly neglect to take advantage of this opportunity before death arrives. Without attachment, a bird gives up the tree in which his nest was constructed, when that tree is cut down by cruel men who are like death personified. At that time, the bird achieves happiness by going to another tree. So we're living like a bird that's on a tree. We built a nest on the tree, like we built our home with, everything around this particular nest that we've got, our home, our body, our family. But at some point, that tree is cut down. It says here, it is cut down by cruel men who are like death personified. So death comes and takes away everything from us. And then the soul moves on and finds another body and builds another house and builds another family and goes through this whole cycle again and again and again for thousands of lifetimes until we wake up and we realize, what am I doing? Why am I going through this whole cycle again and again? It's time to get free from the cycle of birth and death. Krishna then says, knowing that one's duration of life is being similarly cut down by the passing of days and nights, one should be shaken and should shake themselves up. In this way, giving up all material attachment and desire, one understands that the supreme being, and achieves perfect peace. The human body, which can award all benefit in life, is automatically obtained by the laws of nature, although this body is a very rare achievement, a human body. This human body can be compared to a perfectly constructed boat, having the spiritual master as the captain and the instructions of the personality of Godhead as favorable winds, impelling it on its course. Considering all these advantages, a human being who does not utilize this human life to cross the ocean of material existence must be considered the killer of his own soul. Now, souls cannot be killed. This is a metaphorical statement, but it's to get the point across that if you do not utilize this human life, which is extremely rare, out of 8,400,000 species, only a few of them are human. We have gone through all kinds of species, and finally we've come to this point of having a human life. In this human life, we can understand these things. We can understand what Krishna is saying. We can understand the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, or whatever other scripture it is you wish to follow. We are not interested in what scripture you follow. That is not important. We are interested in what qualities you develop, how you change your character, how you change your way of thinking, how you change your way of being and relating with each other and ultimately with yourself and with God. That matters. So one who does not utilize this human life is to be and becomes lost in the ocean of this material world, trying to enjoy one pleasure after another, or just trying to survive. Such a person is known to be a killer of his own soul, which means you're really acting in your worst interest, because you're not realizing that none of this has ever worked for anyone. No one. You're just following. It's like the blind leading the blind, and all of them fall into a ditch. Krishna says, a transcendentalist, having become disgusted and hopeless in all endeavors for material happiness, completely controls the senses and develops detachment from the world. It begins with learning to control the senses, not enjoy the senses. We have been told, yes, we need to enjoy the senses, eat, drink, and be merry, enjoy. But this is the hedonistic philosophy. It doesn't cause spiritual advancement. It causes spiritual degradation. Spiritual advancement begins when you learn to control your senses, when you learn to control your mind, when you learn to control your desires. And to control them means learning how to turn them off. And then once in a while, turning them on. But by your choice. If they're controlling you, your desires, your thoughts, your mind, your senses, then you're just a puppet in their hands. You're not really in charge of your life. By spiritual practice, one should then fix the mind on the spiritual platform without deviation. Whenever the mind being concentrated on the spiritual platform is suddenly deviated from its spiritual position, one should carefully bring it under the control of the self by following the prescribed means. So the mind will wander. The mind will go here and there, and you have to bring it back. You might have noticed all the time your mind is wandering off here, wandering off there. And even if you try to meditate, your mind will wander. In fact, it might wander even more. But we have to keep bringing it back. And as we bring it back, it now starts to become controlled. In the purport, it is said the mind is so flickering that it may suddenly be deviated from one's spiritual goal. One should then carefully bring the mind back under the control of the self, meaning of the soul. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that if one is too austere or too sensuous, one cannot control the mind. There has to be a balance. Yes, you need things for your senses, that's all right. But don't let them control you. You be in control. You make the choices. You determine whether this is really good for me or not. This sweet dish that I enjoy so much, is it really good for me? This thing I like to smoke, is it really good for me? Is it good for my body? Is it good for my mind? Is it good for my spirituality? Is it really helping me stay in control of my mind, body, and senses? Is it really helping me advance spiritually? Because that is the goal of my life. Sometimes one may bring the mind under control by allowing the senses limited satisfaction. For example, although one may eat austerely, from time to time one may accept a reasonable amount of opulent foods that have been offered to, let's say, the temple deity, so that the mind will not become disturbed. So in this way, there are many examples that one can have in which, yes, you give the mind a little something, but don't indulge it. In this way, the waves of illusion will soon subside and the path of advancement will again open wide. One should never lose sight, Krishna is saying, of the actual goal of your activities, but rather by conquering the prana, the life air, and the senses, and utilizing the intelligence strengthened by the mode of goodness, one should bring the mind under the control of the self. An expert horseman desiring to tame a headstrong horse first lets the horse have his way for a moment, and then pulling the reins gradually places the horse on the desired path. Similarly, the supreme yoga process is that by which one carefully observes the movements and desires of the mind and then gradually brings them under full control. So the moment you keep watching your mind and you keep on, challenging it, you keep on busting its stories and its made up beliefs and its made up ideas, gradually you'll find it starts to come more and more in your control. It will start to realize it is being watched and it can't get away with the nonsense it was getting away with earlier when nobody was watching it, when you just believed it blindly, when you just did whatever it told you, said whatever it was telling you. Then you were a puppet in its hand. But now that you have been watching it, now that you have been challenging it, now that you have stopped following its dictation, its commands, it will start to tone down and it will start to become more and more your mind. You control. Until one's mind is fixed in spiritual satisfaction, one should analytically study the temporary nature of all material objects, whether cosmic, earthly, or atomic. One should constantly observe the processes of creation through the natural progressive function and the process of annihilation through the regressive function. So basically telling you that, you got to observe not just your mind, but also observe the nature of this world and the nature of people. Become more the observer. And as you observe without judgment, without going into positive, negative, right, wrong, and a non-dual space, observing, you'll notice the true nature of reality and how nothing in this world is really satisfying. You'll notice that everything is moving towards annihilation. You'll notice that this isn't working. And then at that point, you'll start to move more and more towards your spiritual path. Then he says, when a person is disgusted with the temporary, illusory nature of this world and is thus detached from it, his mind, guided by the instructions of his spiritual master, considers again and again the nature of this world and eventually gives up the false identification with matter, meaning the identification with this body, this identification that I am this body, that this is me. No, I had many bodies. I'm not my car. I'm not my house. I am not any of this. And nothing is mine, not my possessions, not my partner, not my children. Nothing is mine. This is not me, and nothing is mine. When you begin to realize that, I, me, and mine dissolves, and that's where the spiritual life really begins. So although it is difficult to control the mind, by constant practice the mind can be spiritualized. A sincere disciple constantly remembers the instructions of his spiritual master and thereby faces again and again the stark truth that the material world is not the ultimate reality. By detachment and perseverance, the mind gradually gives up its propensity towards sense gratification. Thus, illusion loses its grip on a sincere devotee or practitioner of bhakti yoga. Gradually, the purified mind completely gives up the false identification with this world and transfers its attention to the spiritual platform. Then one is considered to be perfect in yoga. Through the various disciplinary regulations and purificatory procedures of the yoga system, through logic and spiritual education, or through worship and adoration of God, one should ultimately engage his mind in remembering the personality of Godhead, which is the goal of yoga. No other means should be employed for this purpose. So Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana bhava mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru. Always think of me, become my devotee. Yoginam api sarvesham mad gate nantaratmana. That of all the yogis, one who worships me with love and devotion is to be considered the highest of all. Then he says, if because of momentary inattention, a yogi, a bhakti yogi, or any yogi accidentally commits an abominable activity, then by the very practice of yoga, he should burn to ashes this sinful reaction without at any time employing any other procedure. This is important. So it's not that we need to, suppose we do something wrong, and we will at times stray from our path. We will at times do things that hurt people. We will at times do things that shouldn't be done. So although it is forbidden and one should not, yet one does. Krishna is saying here that one shouldn't then go into some other purificatory rites and so on. The yoga system itself is enough for purifying. If you're engaged in bhakti yoga, then just continue with bhakti. But come back to it with from a place of humility, feeling that sense of remorse of what you have done and changing your ways. One should pick oneself up from an accidental fall down and go on vigorously with one's prescribed duty in life without being unnecessarily discouraged. One should certainly lament and feel ashamed, or there will be no purification. However, if one becomes overly depressed at an accidental fall down from the spiritual standards that you've set, one will not have the enthusiasm to go on one's spiritual path. Krishna also states in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 30, Api ched suduracharo. So if one engages in durachar, that is a bad behavior, a negative, an undesirable behavior, right? And it happens. Bhajate mam ananya bhak. If that person worships me, ananya bhak, with unwavering devotion, sadhureva samantavya, that person should be considered a sadhu, a gentleman or gentle lady, a person who is wise, a person who is evolved. Sadhurish eva mantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. Even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. Does that mean that one should let this person go on engaging in being involved in abominable actions? Absolutely not. It must be stopped immediately. However, The idea is to understand that God is extremely forgiving. We are not here dealing with some version of God that is going to punish people and send them to hell forever. No, God is extremely forgiving. He considers that if one is rightly situated towards Him, if one is devoted to Him, that even if they have committed the most abominable acts, that person should be considered saintly. Now, that doesn't mean they won't go through the consequences of their actions. If they have broken the law, they will go through the consequences of that. If they have lied or cheated or killed or stolen, well, they will go through the consequences of that. That will still happen. However, those that know this person should now suddenly not start talking ill of them. They should consider that person to be saintly, to know that they are a devotee of God and they have made some mistake, they have done some wrong thing, and they are repentful of it, and they will, and by our acceptance of them or seeing them, that even through their worst of times and their worst of actions, we still honor them, we still respect them. They will elevate themselves again because we haven't condemned them. When we condemn someone, we condemn ourselves and we cause them to continue to stay fallen. We do not help them rise. Then Krishna says, it is firmly declared that the steady adherence of transcendentalists to their respective spiritual positions constitutes real piety, and that sin occurs when a transcendentalist neglects his prescribed duty. So pretty much if you continue doing what you're supposed to do, the path is clearly given to you. You will not go into a place of breaking your vows or going off track, but you will stick to that. And nor will you engage in illicit or illegal activities. So this is the real standard, is that you follow the path the way it is described. It is only when we deviate from the path, then all kinds of things happen. So one who adopts this standard of piety, and certainly desiring to give up all past association with sense gratification, is able to subdue materialistic activities which are by nature impure. I'm sure you have lots of questions, so if you do, please write them down. I'll be happy to answer your questions at any time, either now or later. Then Krishna continues, having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, and still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. So it is to be known that it takes a while, even though you might understand some of these things, but to really become free of the desire for sense enjoyment, the desire for honor, for prestige, for being looked or appreciated and valued by people, and all this egoic nonsense. Even though you might know that that is not the real spiritual path, still it takes time to snap out of it. But one should keep hearing. And even though it seems hard to hear, and even though it seems like difficult to understand, you don't want to accept it, you don't want to follow it, yet one must strive. In the purport, it is written, the word Anishvara indicates that because of one's past karmic activities and bad habits, one may not immediately be able to completely extinguish the enjoying spirit. The Supreme Lord here encourages such a devotee not to be overly depressed or morose, but to remain enthusiastic and go on with his loving service. The word Dridha Nischay, steadfast conviction, indicates that in any circumstance, a devotee is completely determined to go on with his prescribed duties for Krishna. Thus he thinks, by my previous shameful life, my heart is polluted with many illusory attachments. Personally, I have no power to stop them. Only Krishna within my heart can remove such inauspicious contamination. But whether the Lord removes such attachments immediately or lets me go on being afflicted by them, I will never give up my devotional service to Him. Even if my dear Lord places millions of obstacles in my path, and even if because of my offenses I have to go to some hellish situation, I will never for a moment stop serving Sri Krishna. Although I am attached to material things, I can see very clearly that they lead to no good because they simply give me trouble and disturb my bhakti. Therefore, I sincerely repent my foolish attachments to so many material things, and I patiently await Krishna's mercy. A sincere devotee must be sincerely convinced that simply by the strength of devotional service and the mercy of Sri Krishna, he will achieve everything auspicious in life. One must believe that Krishna is all merciful and that he is the only real goal of life. Such determined faith combined with a sincere desire to give up sense enjoyment will carry one past the obstacles of this life. Then Krishna continues, when an intelligent person engages constantly in worshipping me through loving devotional service as described by me, his heart becomes firmly situated in me. Thus all material desires within the heart are destroyed. The knot in the heart, Hridaya Granthi, is pierced. All misgivings, all samshay are cut to pieces, and the chain of karmic actions is terminated. When Mayi Drishte Akhila Atmani, when I am seen as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, he's making a very important point here. Knot in the heart, Hridaya Granthi. What is the knot in the heart? The attachment to this world, to our desires, to everything, or the desire to be an enjoyer, to enjoy this world, to have a wonderful time, to have a blast, as they say. Right? That knot in the heart becomes pierced through devotional service, through bhakti yoga, and gets cut to pieces as we understand with knowledge the futility of material existence. And with that, the chain of karmic actions gets terminated. When one sees that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here the word Akhila Atmani means one who is everywhere. That Atma, that soul, that being, who is everywhere, who is all-embracing, who is universal. That is Sri Krishna. When a devotee achieves steadiness in devotional service, feeling transcendental pleasure at every moment in the execution of his loving service to Krishna, the knot of false identification is pierced. All his misgivings are cut to pieces. In illusion, we imagine that the living entity cannot be fully satisfied without sense gratification. Materialistic persons consider sense enjoyment and speculative knowledge to be essential for civilized life. The pure devotee knows and realizes that Krishna is an unlimited ocean of happiness and the personification of all knowledge. The realization of Sri Krishna completely eradicates the twin tendencies of sense gratification and mental speculation. Thus, the chain of karma automatically collapses, just as a fire collapses and goes out when the fuel is burnt out or is spent. Krishna then says, therefore, for a devotee engaged in my loving service with mind fixed on me, the cultivation of knowledge and renunciation is generally not the means for achieving the highest perfection within this world. In other words, he's saying knowledge and renunciation, which are very important on the Gyan Marg, on the path of Gyan, they are not that important on the path of loving devotion. In fact, the greatest devotees of Krishna were householders, family people, the gopis of Vrindavan, Nanda and Yashoda. They were all living with their families, but they loved him like nobody else. And that love is what matters. So knowledge and renunciation are helpful to help us get out of the spell of material existence. But they are not what is going to help you attain the highest perfection. Krishna continues, everything that can be achieved by karmic activities, penance, knowledge, detachment, mystic yoga, charity, religious duties, and all other means of perfecting life is easily achieved by my devotee through loving service unto me. If somehow or other my devotee desires promotion to heaven or liberation or residence in my abode, he easily achieves such benedictions. So it's not that Krishna doesn't want us to be happy or doesn't want us to enjoy. It's just that we need to be able to see through the veil, to see through the illusion, to see through the matrix. And once we see through it, then we realize that none of this is working for anyone. And we begin to act in a way that actually is in our long-term best interest. All right. Because my devotees possess saintly behavior and deep intelligence, they completely dedicate themselves to me and do not desire anything besides me. Indeed, even if I offer them liberation from birth and death, they do not accept it. It is said that complete detachment is the highest stage of freedom. Detachment from the world, detachment from the mind. We were talking about this, right? It is said that complete detachment is the highest stage of freedom. Therefore, one who has no personal desire and does not pursue personal rewards can achieve loving devotional service unto me. In the purport, it is said, in this age of Kali, people are gradually very fallen and polluted by material lust, greed, anger, lamentation, and so forth. They are sarva kama, or full of material desires, but simply by taking shelter of Sri Krishna, we will achieve everything in life. The living entity should not engage in any process except the loving service of the Supreme Lord. One must accept that Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure, and that only He who is within our heart can fulfill our real desire. The simple faith that one will achieve everything by approaching Krishna is the essence of all knowledge and carries even a fallen person over the painful hurdles of this troubled time. Finally, Krishna says, material piety and sin which arise from the good and evil of this world cannot exist within my unalloyed devotees. Unalloyed means pure devotees, who, being free from material hankering, maintain steady spiritual consciousness in all circumstances. Indeed, such devotees have achieved me, the Supreme Lord, who am beyond everything and can be conceived. Anything, who have beyond anything that can be conceived by material intelligence. Persons who seriously follow these methods of achieving me, which I have personally taught, attain freedom from illusion, and upon reaching my personal abode, they perfectly understand the absolute truth. So I know today was long. Thank you so much for being here. It's been an honor to serve, to share these things with you. We've been reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, in case you came in late, the 11th Canto, chapter number 20. And we're continuing with the Uddhava Gita, coming to the end of Krishna's pastimes. So I'm here every Tuesday, that is to say, in Eastern time, 7 o'clock. I'm sorry, 8 o'clock. And Pacific time, 5 p.m. And if you're in India, then it'll be on a Wednesday. But thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions, you may either ask them now or later. But I would be happy to answer any of your questions. Please feel free to ask. All these recordings are there on my YouTube channel. Just look for my name at Rohit Juneja, and you'll find my channel. And go there, and any of the videos, feel free to ask any question you have. No question is a bad question. All questions are welcome. I'll see you next week, next Tuesday. Take care. Hare Krishna.